Very excited
Same
for
here.
that. I got one more question. I'm gonna let you go because it's very weird what's going on in South Africa. First with Julius Malaya, being he still in jail or is he out right now?
He's not actually in jail yet. He's been given leave to appeal.
Okay. Okay. And then also they're deporting Zimbabweans and people from Ghana as well too in South Africa. What's going on with this government right now? What do you know about
So
that?
the most important thing to understand about South Africa is that it's a battleground state in Africa. Its official foreign policy is leftist. Its official foreign policy is pro-Palestine. Obviously, the ruling party was literally born out of an African independence movement,
Oh yeah,
the
Winnie
African National
Mandela.
Congress. Yeah, I mean, it's not really that anymore. It's now more like a
Yeah.
neoliberal center-right party, but that's where its ideological roots still lie, and there's still many things about the South African state which are still considered revolutionary up until
Mhm.
now. Now, as I'm sure you know, there exists a very significant minority of South Africans, white South Africans, and people of South African descent who would very much like to completely transform the South African state into something that more closely resembles what it was prior to 1994.
Of
One of
course.
these people is the supposed world's first trillionaire, whose name shall not be mentioned. Uh, and over the past year and a half, you've seen an escalating series of actions designed to diplomatically isolate and discredit South Africa in the global space. So it started with the so-called white genocide kite, which was being flown.
Yeah.
So the idea was, these guys have taken Israel to the ICJ and successfully argued that Israel is committing genocide. I mean, everybody knows Israel is committing genocide,
Yeah.
but this
Big
was
one.
the country that actually took it to, like, that actually made it legal, made it formal. No one else did.
Right.
So, first of all, that means that the revolutionary underpinnings of the South African states are still very much present, even though economically it runs as a center-right neoliberal economy. But ideologically, there are still elements who are still closer to the ideological roots of the ANC, such as those who took Israel to the ICJ,
Right.
which means that South Africa still remains a formidable obstacle, or South Africa's foreign policy still remains an obstacle. And also bear in mind, South Africa is still officially part of BRICS. So Russia is a South African ally,
Yeah.
officially, even to date. So for those people who look at Africa as a giant cake to be divvied up and who see the decolonization of Africa, or the imperfect decolonization of Africa during the Cold War, as a historical tragedy, people who see the loss of European empires in Africa as a tragedy, and who dream of someday reoccupying and recolonizing Africa, we know who these people are, again, including the world's first trillionaire. To these people, the South African state needs to be fundamentally reshaped. South Africa as an obstacle needs to be taken off the board. So first discredited using the white genocide thing. That didn't stick. And then start covertly arming and supplying separatist elements within South Africa. So if you've ever heard of this whites only enclave called Orania,
Yeah.
which is in the northern Cape in South Africa. Um, Earlier this year, the office of the U.S. First Lady started sending Starlink kits to Orania under the official seal of the office of the First Lady of the United States. Bear in mind, Starlink is not legal in South Africa. And essentially, this means that Orania now has access to independent communications equipment that is independent of the South African state and that cannot be monitored by the South African state. That is an act of war.
Yeah. I'm like, how is that even possible? Because Starlink is banned in South Africa. So, like,
Yeah.
the fact that they're even doing that is just like people need to be prosecuted.
Yeah. And they're not hiding it. It's appearing. There's a picture on Twitter. You can see the official seal of the First Lady of the US. They're sending Starlink
Wow.
kits. right, to
Wow.
this enclave that has its own currency and its own flag, which closely resembles the flag of apartheid South Africa, right?
Mm.
And then, parallel to all of this happening, the new U.S. ambassador to South Africa, a guy called Brent Brazell, who's a raging Zionist, shock gasp. Um, he comes in, and the first thing he does is basically starts interfering in local politics. He starts making statements about how this song that caused furore, "Kill the Boer,"
Oh, yeah, yeah,
which you
yeah.
guys
I
know,
love
yeah.
that song.
So it was ruled by South African courts as part of South Africa's anti-apartheid heritage. You can't ban it because it's a struggle song, right? And this
Right.
guy, who is supposed to be an ambassador, goes and addresses a public gathering, and he says he doesn't care what the South African court says. An ambassador, a diplomat. So he gets summoned by
That's
the South
crazy.
African. He gets summoned by the South African Foreign Ministry, and there's a whole back and forth. And then a few days after that, he goes and has a meeting with separatists in the Western Cape. So you might not know this. In the Western Cape of South Africa, which is where Cape Town is located, there's a whole movement called Western Cape Independence Movement, which is led by white people for the
Mhm.
purpose of seceding from South Africa and creating a white ethno state.
Mm.
Western Cape ethno state, basically. And this guy, who's
That's
supposedly the U.S. ambassador, goes and meets with these separatists. Something else that will blow your mind about this is that the leader of this supposed Western Cape independence movement, a guy called Phil Craig,
mhm.
is a British citizen. He's not even a South African citizen. He's a British citizen who is resident in South Africa, right? He's a British guy born and raised in England who went with his British passport to South Africa, liked it, decided to settle down there, gain legal residency, set up a political party, and started agitating to secede from South Africa because South Africa has too many black people. And then this new US ambassador goes and meets with these people.
This is crazy.
Right.
Like they haven't
And
stopped.
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Here I am thinking like, oh, the white people lost a lot of power. They gotta coincide with the black government. No, 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 no.
They
We're
were just
still
biding their time. They were just
oh
biding their
man.
time. So now, after that happens, then this lady, some lady called Jacinta Ngubese, who was like, she was a radio host on an obscure radio station, like a complete nobody. All of a sudden, in South Africa, you can't put on your TV, you can't put on your radio and escape her. All of a
Oh man.
sudden, she's everywhere, and you know what that means.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or
Wow.
someone is obviously pushing her, right?
Yeah.
Because why does this random person all of a sudden get all this coverage? How?
A lot of money
And
is behind her.
yeah,
A lot.
exactly. And she starts this thing called March and March, where they're supposedly going after illegal immigrants. Then it always moves from illegal to any immigrant at all. Because there's a long-standing issue. There's a long-standing xenophobia issue in South Africa, obviously,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
but that has always been there, and that hasn't necessarily done anything. It's just a thing. It's just a fact of life there. You know, it's like racist white people, right? It doesn't stop you from living in the US. It's just a fact of life, right?
Right,
Now,
right, right.
all of a sudden, it starts turning violent, and they start issuing deadlines by June 30. All
Oh
all
my
foreigners
god.
must have left South Africa. And then, while all of this is happening, the news media, which is entirely controlled by the usual suspects, just keeps giving them coverage, more and more and more coverage, such that what started off as a tiny group, less than 100 people, has now become like this phenomenon because the media keeps promoting it. So even
Jesus.
those who might have had these bigotries or whatever, but who were never going to act on them,
Hmm.
they feel emboldened now
Right,
because the media is
right,
telling them that this phenomenon sweeping the nation,
right.
isn't it?
Just like
So
here.
that's having exactly,
Jesus Christ.
exactly. So that's having two effects. First, it's turning South Africa itself into a tinderbox, and then more importantly, on the African continent, it's turning South Africa into a pariah,
Mm.
where to the extent that some days back, South Africa played a World Cup game against Mexico, and the rest of Africa was supporting Mexico. That has never happened before. Yeah, like there were.
Oh man.
You can look this up. You can look this up. There's videos on social media. There were Nigerians who like Nigerians living in the US who, because the game was in Mexico, they traveled